Hey everybody, I'm just going to get the tweet out that I'm streaming, and then we're going to get to work on something new and fun tonight. And tonight's going to go a little better than last night, I hope. So let me tweet this out. Hey everybody, I'm just going to get the tweet out that I'm streaming, and then we're going to get to work on something new and fun tonight. And tonight's going to go a little better than last night, I hope. So let me tweet this out. Hey everybody, I'm just going to get the tweet out that I'm streaming, and then we're going to get to work on something new and fun tonight. And tonight's going to go a little better than last night, I hope. So let me tweet this out. Alright, so what is the idea here tonight? And I'll show you this. This is actually pretty cool. And I didn't know this. So let's go into Python. And what I come to realize, I thought that clid was only show commands. Well, check this out. If we just do dir, from CLI import star clid dir, we get the JavaScript object notation payload back from dir. Like, that is really powerful, and we can do some really neat things with this. So let's get out of the console here, and let's set up some environment variables so things are a little easier to develop. So we're going to export repo equals, and let's go get our repo information here, and output, and paste that in here. And we're going to export username equals automate your network. And let's get the token. And I will cycle tokens. I've been pretty good about cycling my tokens. So my token is in here somewhere. And no, export token equals. And we're going to clear the screen. Okay, so now what we can do, and I haven't templated this yet. Let's just get the JSON. So nxpydocs, command is dir, and we want the JSON, and it's going to push that JSON of the dir command up to GitHub, which in itself is pretty remarkable. So let's take a look at this JSON output in a text editor in VS Code, so it's nice and pretty and easy to work with. So we're going to hop into the output, and we're going to pull down the latest output, and in JSON we have dir. So check it out. We have all of the files that are on dir, and there is the image and the file size of the image. So we can test against that. Is this file present, and is it this size? Almost like an MD5 check. Also, show version will show you what's in memory of the startup and the kickstart. But what if someone were to delete this and we reload the box? Well, now we're in ROM mod, and that's not good. So we can test to say, hey, the bin file is not in Bootflash. Fail the test and send an alert. The other thing I'm interested in is the bytes total and bytes used. Bytes free, yes, but what we can do is a percentage. We can say bytes used divided by bytes total times 100, and if that is less than, say, 85, just an arbitrary number, then we know we're low on disk space in Bootflash. So let's make the documentation first. And I'm not sure how I want to do this yet. If I want two different files, one with the bytes information and the usage, and then one for each file. That might be better than trying to make one CSV file that has a bunch of NA, you know. So let's get into the code. Let's get going here. Let's do some work. So what we're going to do is, first of all, we're going to add dir to our list of commands that have templates, and say, hey, I see a bunch of people watching. Let me know where you're tuning in from. I'd like to just say hi to everybody. Let me know where you are in the world. And as always, questions, comments, ideas, memes, whatever you got, just drop it in the chat. I'm watching the chat and I hopefully will be able to respond to you. So the first file, obviously, that I like to make is the CSV file. And we're going to put this one right at the top, right? So if command equals dir, else, and then we're going to add our end if. Now this is CSV file, so really I think I actually do need to, yeah, I think what I'm going to have to do is just try to cram this into one spreadsheet. So what we can do is, we'll just, it might not be the prettiest, but it will work. So we're going to add our header row. So we're going to have file name, file size, timestamp, and that will cover each of these files. And then what we're going to do is add bytes free, bytes total. I mean, I technically could put it all in. Let me do this in 2 rows. Let me just do this differently. Let's just try something. So bytes free is going to be dropped. So then we're going to say for item in data to template dot table dir dot row dir, and we're going to have item dot f name, item dot f size, item dot time string, and there's no commas in any of that, so we're okay there. And we're going to end our for loop, and then we're going to add another header. Hey Jake, thanks so much. I don't want to sit here in silence and just code away. I'd like to try to speak through it and connect the dots for people that are watching. So thank you. I tried to think out loud. Yeah, exactly that. So you can kind of see what my thinking is. Now this, I don't know if I want to do it either this way or let's do it the way I originally intended it. Let's do it the way I originally intended it. So we're going to have bytes free, bytes total, bytes used. And again, there's many ways to skin the cat. You'll see why I don't necessarily like this. And then we're going to have NA, 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 NA. Right, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then after the loop, we're going to have NA, NA, NA. And then we're going to have data to template dot bytes free, data to template bytes total, data to template bytes used, and then data to template usage. And so, right, this is going to render NAs for that row. You'll see. And then that's it. So that should give us a CSV file. So before I move on, I like to validate my CSV. So let's do our poetry, which is my package manager for pip, version patch. Bring that up to 1.9. Delete my last build. Poetry build. Poetry publish using my PyPy token. And then we're going to go onto the box and we're going to pip install nxpydocs-u. Make sure we pull down that latest code. And there it is. Run nxpydocs with the dir command. Let's get the YAML off the box. Well, I'll get YAML later. Let's do the CSV. So this will make a spreadsheet of every file, the file name, the size, the date stamp, and then another row with the Bootflash information. That's the intention here. So let's go into our document here. Whoops. And right, we can see there's an update. If we go into the CSV, there's dir. And if I look at this as a spreadsheet, that's actually not too bad with the one row of NA, right? And if you want bytes free at the top, that should sort it. I don't know why that's not sorting it. But anyway, you can see the bytes free. The other alternative would be to add, only have 3 rows. Yeah, I kind of like it this way. So then there's our file names. And yeah, so that's not bad. I kind of like that. So now we know every file that's in the Bootflash of this device, and their sizes, and their timestamps, and then bytes free. Again, I don't know why it's not bubbling that to the top. So I can do usage, and that brings it to the top. That's pretty remarkable, right? So now let's finish the templating of the other file formats, which isn't going to take a lot of time, and then we'll start testing things. So what I like to do is always steal that CSV that I just made, and we'll do the markdown first. So let's add our end if, go to the top, paste in our new thing, and then again, all we do, we're going to add a header row here that says dir. Let's just do directory. A pipe here, a pipe there, a pipe and a pipe, and then another set of pipes. And then we're going to find and replace the comma with space, pipe, my French keyboard, space, pipe, space. And we're going to go slowly because we don't want to replace anything that's important. So we're going to just replace those. And that's the last one. Okay, now we're going to go back up in here. And we're not quite done. We need our delimiter row. So pipe, and then an equal number of dashes for the characters in the header row as a markdown delimiter. And I'll do all the files, and then we'll render all the files. So that's the markdown. Easy, done. Now we're going to go into the CSV, and let's just get this file closed. Increment that to 10 and close it. And again, we're going to take the CSV information. Scargy, I'm not sure what you mean. What about the files on those folders? You mean the files inside the folders? Well, all I'm doing is the dir command. Hey, DevNet Dan. How you doing, Danny? Thanks for joining. Again, all I'm parsing here is the dir command. So I would need to know the path to those folders. I'm not necessarily looking at, I'm just looking at the root of directory here. I'm not going into each folder and enumerating every file. I'm just getting the main directory. So we're going to get the CSV information, and the next one I do is HTML. And again, this is just find and replace and a little bit of HTML tags. So we're going to add our end if, paste that in here, and we're going to steal some code from the table that I know works. So a header row, just called directory, and then tab that in. And you don't have to tab this in. I tab it in for readability. HTML doesn't care, but I like to make it a little more readable. And then we're going to steal, I need a little bit more here. Yeah, the table head slash table head to close off the header, table body, and then we're going to build our body. So we need a row. We need to close that row. We need another row and close that row, and then td slash td. Oh, I see. My tabs are off here. 1, 2. td slash td. And then, again, we're just going to replace the commas. Instead of pipe space pipe. Hey, Jake. If you're on Twitter, you can ping me on Twitter, send me a DM with your email, and I'll send you a PDF of my book. And yes, I think it is suitable for you. It's a really good place to start. It's an Ansible specific book. It's not Python related in any way. And also I can send you a video that I made about the materials I use to pass my DevNet associate. So Jake, just ping me on Twitter. And if you don't have my Twitter, we'll connect another way if you're not on Twitter, but ping me on Twitter and I'll send you a PDF of my book that will get you started in automation. And Jinja templating, what you're seeing me do right now, is a big part of my book. It's basically a Jinja book disguised as an automation book, is the way I've been describing it. So what do we want to replace here? Well, slash table header, shift enter, by the way, works in VS Code find replace. And add the 4 spaces and then table header. So this all lines up nicely. And then we're going to change it to TD for our body. And we're going to go slow because I don't want to nuke anything like I did last night by accident, and stop there. That's it. HTML file is done and ready to go. Now you can see here, in case you haven't noticed, at the very top, I can include another Jinja 2 template. So I include data table header. And at the very bottom, I include data table footer. Now this is the header. And this is all free code, by the way. I'll just do this in case you haven't seen this. Datatables.net. And they show you, right, copy this CSS, copy this JavaScript in your header. And then call this function at the bottom as a footer. Now, I've gone through this and gone through the documentation and grabbed a bunch of these other capabilities beyond this basic table. But this is the idea, that we get a searchable, paginated, sortable table instead of just a plain HTML table. And you'll see that when I render the page. Yeah, grab me on Twitter, Jake. I'll hook you up. No problem at all. So we're going to save that. And then for the mind map, I grab the HTML just because it's easiest for me to copy. So for the HTML, or for the mind map, and the mind map will actually deal with these NAs. We won't have them in the mind map. So I copy basically from my start of my table body, right? Grab the table body and copy it and go into the mind map. And before I forget, let's add the end if and go all the way to the top of this. And we're going to say if command equals dir else, and we're going to paste that in. So then what I'm going to do is add a header row called directory. I'm going to get rid of all of the HTML tags and the NAs. We don't care about NAs. We don't need those in the mind map. And then we're going to get rid of the TDs. And to do these lines, I'll just mention this. It's Shift Alt. So get your cursor where you want. Shift Alt. And then you can draw a straight vertical line. Right? So that's how I'm doing this, to manipulate all 4 cursors at one time. And what we're going to do is for each item, let's do it this way. We're going to have 1, 2, and call this files. Whoops, and we're going to go 1, 2, 3, name, 1, 2, 3, size, 1, 2, 3, timestamp. And then for these ones, we're going to have 1, 2, usage, I guess, because it might not be Bootflash. Yeah, let's take usage here. So that's going to say Bootflash. 1, 2, 3. And we could even add, let's do this. It's unnecessary, but let's just add another one here called bytes. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, free. 1, 2, 3, 4, total. 1, 2, 3, 4, used. And that is our mind map. So all files are ready to go. Let's delete the last build. I've already incremented the version. So again, poetry version patch, we'll bring it up a level. Build. Publish. I use a token. You can use a username and password. I just switched to tokens because I like using tokens. Back over into our Bootflash. And, you know, this, just make sure that you actually see it pull down your update. Like there, you can see that it downloaded and that it's successfully installed 1010. So now what we can do is nxpydocs dir all files. And it doesn't take any longer to do more files because it's just running it through more templating. So I'm cloning the repo into guest shell, adding the files into their folders, doing a git add star, a git commit with an automated commit message, and then a git push, and then I delete that folder. If I do ls, there's no folder because you can't clone into an existing folder, so I just do a cleanup step at the end. So let's take a look at what these files look like. So that's the CSV file, which is good, which is great. But now I have multiple files. So the YAML, dir, looks like this. A built-in YAML dictionary that we could load as a data model or call programmatically, or if you prefer to read YAML over JSON or CSV or whatever. So there's the YAML. We've already seen the CSV file. We've already seen the JSON. Let's look at the markdown. And it looks kind of cruddy here, but if we preview it, right, or if we go into the Git repo and find that dir in the markdown, it will render in GitHub. Pretty slick, right? The other thing I'll call out, and I don't necessarily like to do this, but it will render as a mind map. Now this tabular mind map gives you the header row, and then it gives you each individual key value, right? Which is okay, but that's why I make the mind map in that format you saw to actually make it look like this, right? So now, okay, so I have to fix the mind map. What I want is a name. Okay. We'll fix the mind map. I'm not happy with that. I don't like that. We'll make that better. But let's take a look at the data table. Open in default browser. So this is the data table, right? We can sort, search, paginate, filter. I could just look for NXOS in the files. And there's my bin file. I can drag these around. Let's say I want timestamps beside. I can search here, NXOS. And it's paginated. So there's the second page. I can show more rows, show all 25, or show all. I could even hide rows. So like if I don't want the bytes on here, if I just want the files. And that is all done just by the CSS and the JavaScript that I've imported from datatables.net. Pretty slick, right? So let's clean up that mind map before I forget, before we move along. And we're going to go into the mind map, and instead of for each item having the name, what's our best approach here? Is to add a header here and a header here. Yeah, let's do that. So let's recompile this. Version patch, build, publish, and republish this and regenerate that file. And then what we'll do is move on to testing. So let's just make sure that that looks better, and it will look better. I guarantee it will look better. I just had name because it's in the loop, so you sort of need to add a layer of nesting under name. So nx pydocs, and we'll just do dir, and we'll do mind map. And this will just take a second again to reload. And we'll get into the output folder. Sorry, the output folder. And the mind map. And because it's Git, I can pull this down and you'll see there. So now it looks like this, which is better because now under each file, the file name, I have the size and the timestamp. So I can collapse files and get the Bootflash information, or I can collapse Bootflash and collapse a bunch of the files. Mind map from the dir command. So now let's do some testing. And from the testing, again, what I'm doing is, in my tests, I'm pulling, and I'm going to have to add a new section here. So let's just start writing the code out loud to give you a sense on how I'm going to do this. So I'll add it, I have get hostname, get version, get system resources, get interface. We're going to add a new function here, a new test called get dir. And if dir is in the item.name registered, I don't know, is dir a keyword in Python? I might have to be careful here with dir as the variable name. Okay, all right, so that's okay. It doesn't complain about that. So now I can call this function to go load that dir JSON from the repository on Git, and then we're going to run some tests against it. So what I'm going to do is take an existing class and test, and let's do version here. Well, do I want version or I'm going to do two different copies. First of all, for version, let's just copy this. So we have version check, resource check, and let's add a new test in here called directory test. And it doesn't really matter where we paste this in. And I haven't quite finished all of my tests yet for these other interface tests. I have to remember that I'm not done those yet. I'll have to come back to those maybe on the weekend or something, or maybe later tonight. So we're going to paste that in. And this one we're going to call this directory check. And we're going to call self dot directory info equals that class we wrote up, or that function we wrote up above. So get dir. Is that what I called it? I lose track so quickly of what I've called things. Yes, get dir. So here, call that get dir and register it as self.directoryinfo. And let's give me some more screen space here. So then for my test, and I've only copied one test in, let's do the size of Bootflash. So instead of NXOS version, we're going to do free disk space as our test. And our threshold here, we'll call this free disk space threshold, and let's just make it arbitrarily 85%. I don't know. I think that's good, right? If I'm lower than 85% of free disk, I'd like to know that I'd like to get an alert that I've run out of disk, or I'm running out of disk, or to fail this test. All right, so test for free disk space as my comment. And then we're going to have self.failed free disk space. And what we're going to do is, so we're loading up the JSON version of the JSON loads of, and it's not self.version.info, it's self.directory.info. And then we can do self free space equals, where's my output? Actually, hang on. I don't want free. I want to do percentages. So we're going to call this one total disk space equals JSON version bytes total. I'm going to copy that line and do used disk space equals bytes used, and then a new variable here called self dot disk space percentage equals, and what is that going to be? It's going to be the used space divided by the total space times 100 to give us a percentage, right? So now we're just going to write our tests. So oh, hang on, I got a typo there. If self.diskSpace, if that is defined, go ahead and make a table. And the table is going to have self.hostname, self.diskSpace percentage, and then we're going to say if the self.diskSpace percentage is less than or equal to, no, greater than, greater than or equal to our threshold, then fail the test. Now go ahead and set up our failed free disk space as that percentage, else, meaning it's not greater than or equals to, it's less than 85, then put in passed. Right, and then else, if disk space percentage, just put in NA and then append the row. And then here on our headers, we're going to have the device, the disk space used percentage. And then if it's defined, call in a new thing called free disk space check, and then if there's a WebEx room key, if we have a token for WebEx, call the free disk space WebEx. So now we're going to take those and rename these tests down here appropriately. And if it fails, we're going to say the free disk space is less than 85%. Else, we're going to say the free disk space is greater than 85%. And let's just make this a little more human, of total disk space, of total, the percentage. Let's just leave it like that. So then we're going to set that threshold up again as 85 here and here. And we're going to copy that in here as the threshold. And then where else? Here and here. So then if self.diskSpace percentage is greater than or equals to the percentage, less than or equal to the percentage, skip it, and give that message again that it's right. Else, we're going to say the free disk space. Oh, hang on, I copied the wrong thing in there. Greater than, and then we're going to say the free disk space percentage is that percentage, and then the threshold value. And then for our WebEx message, it's the same logic here. If it is less than or equal to the threshold, skip it and say that it's greater than 85%. Else, and this is where we invoke the WebEx message. And it's not version, so I need a new WebEx adaptive card. Right, so we're going to have this as failed dir adaptive card, and we're going to make a new adaptive card. We'll come back to the adaptive card. Pass in the host name and pass in the disk space percentage and call this test disk space. Okay, so then we're going to take an existing adaptive card, and it doesn't matter which one. I'm going to rewrite it anyway. So just take this down to the else statement and head into our new template, paste that in, and add an end if, because I'm going to have another condition here in this adaptive card. So then, what did I call it? Disk space. So if the test equals a disk space, we're going to say PyDocs has detected, right? So pass in the room ID. That triggers the WebEx to put it in the right room. And then we're going to have the host name of the device. So it has detected a failure on host name because the disk space is at, let me change that from version to disk space, because the disk space is at disk space. We're going to do another line here. WebEx from PyDocs has detected a failure on blank because the, actually let's change this to the available disk space is at, because the available disk space is at, and then some columns here. So this column is going to say disk space let's make it, and I got to make it bigger, so free disk space percentage. And that's a bunch of characters, right? So what, 4 characters, 8, 13. Let's just bump this up to say 35 width. And we'll leave that at 60. And then this should be disk space. And this is from the dir command on the host. So that should work. That should work. Now let's leave it as it is. So meaning this should pass the test. And do I still have my command in here? I hope so. Yeah, okay. So what I'm doing is I'm adding, so timing the command, pyets run job, the name of my job file, so this control file for pyets, and then I pass in WebEx space and my room, and WebEx token and my token. Now, let me just check if that token is valid. Is that my latest token for WebEx? Yes. Okay, so enter. Now I'm not expecting a WebEx message here. Well, I'm expecting the summary of the job, this job report, but I'm not expecting any failed test. Okay, so hang on, I'm getting some failures in here. and they are on my disk space. So something is wrong here. Free disk space. Ah, string and string. So I need to change those to integers. I always do that. Yeah, geez, John. Okay, all right. I should have known better. Because I'm loading them in as strings, I need to disk space. Here I need to say integer. And then integer. So let's try that again. And it's Python is pretty clear about this, right? Not equals is not, right? Instances between a dictionary and an integer, and right. So string and string. Let's just try it again. And we got to kind of watch because it goes so fast. Unicon is what's using. This is using something called Unicon under the hood. Okay, so it still doesn't like it. What line? 534. Failed memory percentage. But failed memory percentage should be an integer. Which one of these does it think is a dictionary? Self-failed memory percentage, but that should be... So it still thinks that self-failed memory percentage is a dictionary. Is it because I'm doing it like this? I hate to just force it as an integer here, but I'm going to have to. It's weird that it's not, hang on, that right here equals memory percentage value. The memory percentage value is an integer. Right here, that should be an integer. Well, we can force that to be an integer. I'm still not quite sure why I need to do this here. Yeah, it would just default to, let's try that, forcing that into an integer. Hey Neil, thanks for joining again. I'm like making these community friends, people that I'm connecting with often on Twitter and on my YouTube. So it's great to see everybody again. Or if you're here for the first time. Okay, so I'm passing. No, it's still... it doesn't like that. Int must be a string. Bytes like object or a real number, not a dictionary. Okay, so it didn't like that either. I'm not quite sure. Let me undo that. Where else am I doing? Hang on. I'm doing a similar thing with times 100. Like self-memory percentage value. Am I just testing the wrong thing here? Failed memory percentage. See, like I'm doing it here and I don't seem to have a problem. Failed memory percentage, failed memory percentage. Am I just using the wrong value? I think I might be using the wrong value. Yeah, but if I make it 0, then I can't just test if it exists. I guess I could test if it does not equal 0. I'm just wondering... I think I'm calling. Let me just change it to this. Let me just change it to the failed disk space. That should work. That should work. I hope. If not, I'll do the 0 thing, Neil. But I think this should actually get around that problem. But I've known to been wrong. I've been known to be wrong before. Okay, just once. Let me undo what I just did there. And let me split screen and put it side by side with. I just want to see how I'm doing it here, because I'm doing the same math here. I don't. I see what you're saying, Neil, but I've done it here. And I'm trying to see what my delta is between what I've written on the right that works and what's on the left that's not working. Failed free, failed free. Oh, where's my... I'm looking at the wrong thing here. Memory percentage. This is what I want to look at. So int, int, and then a new variable. And that should be an integer. Failed memory percentage value. Disk memory percentage. No, hang on. I'm using something different here. Failed memory percentage. I'm not using the value. So let me call this value just to match up what I've done here. And maybe it will boil up and see what's wrong here. So value, and then if the value is greater than or equal to, set it to the value failed memory percentage. And then I start using failed free disk space. I think that's going to work. It's naming conventions. I wasn't consistent in how I did it before. I think that I'm past that hurdle now with the dictionary thing. No, I am not. Oh, hang on. That is the memory test that's failing, not the directory test. So is it because I only had failed tests before? I think that maybe is what's going on here, is that I only tested the memory. No. Hang on, let me just run it and see if I can get to the new directory tests and see if the directory tests are complaining. Okay, ignore those. Those are the memory tests. That's not my new test. And then there's the free disk space. I think maybe you're right. Maybe I'll set it to 0. So failed memory percentage, let's make that 0. And then we're going to say if that does not equal 0. And then we're going to do the same thing for disk space. That's a 0, and we're going to say does not equal 0. Try that. Because I think with my memory tests, I always had it as a failure, and I just assumed that my logic was right, which you should never do in a past scenario. So let's see. Because these are passing. I'm not hitting the failed scenario right now. These are all in the passing. Okay, hang on. So free disk space, table row append, disk space percentage. Oh, because I didn't rename that variable where I called it free disk space. Does not equal 0. Disk space percentage. What was that complaining about? What wasn't defined? 569. Here, disk space percentage. It should be the value. That's just a mistake on my part when I renamed the variable. I feel you, Neil. We should do a live share someday. I can invite you into this. I should put a live share up in these streams. Is turn on a live share. 15-minute average load. Failed minute average. So this is something else entirely. This is from a previous test. 354. Let's just fix it. I'm not going to ignore that. 354. If failed minute average, it should be 15-minute average here. No. Self failed 15-minute average, self minute average, if self minute average. $15-minute average. 15-minute average. Did I do that wrong for the 5 minutes as well? No, just the 15-minute. All right. Working through the bugs, working through our problems. But yeah, I should set up a live share and just invite people in, and we could program with me, Neil. That might be fun maybe some other time, is to set up a live share. Okay, here we go. Now, no. Disk percentage. Now, at least I'm at my new test. Oh, because when I changed the name, I didn't update all of my variables. I shouldn't have renamed anything. I should have trusted you, Neil, and left it. Where's my terminal? 589. Yeah, so I need, they're going to be white. They're going to be white because they're not defined. There we go. You can ruin all my code. No. All right. Let's see here. Failed disk. I've been clumsy these last 2 nights. Maybe I'm just burning myself out. Maybe I'm doing too much of this. That's heresy. You can never code too much. Okay, there we go. So it failed. It failed because my math is wrong, right? I think, did I invert my test? It should have passed. But we did get the WebEx message. So this is good. But my math is wrong, or I've inverted my greater than or less than somewhere, because I'm 94% free. If we look at the JSON, oh no, that is true. I've actually used quite a bit of this disk. Well, what do you know? And let me just make sure my math is right here. So that divided by that times 100. So the math all lines up. So I'm actually at 94% disk on this host. So there we go. We've just tested and alerted on disk space. So if this was a real production box, I probably would be concerned that I've only got 6% Bootflash free. Or maybe I wouldn't be concerned. I don't know. I'll leave it up to you. I could bump that up to 95% and then the test would pass. So the other test I thought, and this I'm going to need to invoke a loop, is why don't we set that one of the file names has to be this bin file so that I know that the file is there. And then maybe as a follow-up test, that the size of that is this file size. So I know that I have the full bin file, that it's not corrupt or that I've got the wrong image or something, right? Now that test is a little more complicated because I'm inside of a loop here and I'm going to have to interrogate the loop. So what I might do is build an array and put all the file names in an array and then say if the file name is in that array. Maybe that could be the test, something like that. Pretty good so far, even though we had a little hiccup there. So now under the same tests, let's make a new test. And I'm going to use one of my ones that has a loop in it. Right, so we could say, so for file in that table, if the file name is in I don't know. We'll have to figure it out. Let's get the test copied first, though. And let's get one with a WebEx message. So this one has the WebEx message. And we just need the test. We'll put that under the directory check. So let's follow this up with another test. And this test is test for bin file. So we're going to call it directory has bin file, and our threshold is going to be that, I assume we want the threshold to be, okay, I'm all done with my templates. Let's close that down. This string as our bin file threshold. And we're going to have failed bin file. Load in the directory info. And then for file in, and I got to get it's table dir, row dir. If f name is in file, I got to be careful here. I think I need a second loop. Or for each file in the directory, append it to a row. So let's have file list equals like that. And for each file, if f name is in the file, file list dot append file. And then we're going to say, and I don't know about the table information here. If bin file threshold is in file list, bin file equals If bin file in file, I guess I need a loop now over that first. For file in file list, if bin file, if file equals bin file threshold, then set bin file up as file, and if file if file append it with the bin file. I don't need that row. And then if, see, I'm already evaluating this. So if it does equal the bin file, I mean, I could test it again here. I don't think I need to test it again though. If file equals the bin file equals file. Actually, I think I don't need that. And I don't need that. I'm trying to do dry coding here where I'm not going to repeat myself. So I know already that it's a pass. If file is in the file list and the file equals the bin file, then what I need to do is invert my logic here. Hang on, let me undo all that. I see, hang on, I just need this line. So if the file equals bin file, then it's passed, else append the file. I don't need the logic here. And then self dot, and I already have, so I guess I could do if then self failed bin file equals file. I keep checking the YouTube chat to see if anybody's saying, "You fucking all this up. What are you doing?" And this isn't nested enough. If file name is in file appended, no, that's right. And then this else was from my original if statement, so I don't think I'm going to be writing any NA here because I don't want the other files, and then bring that out of the for loop. And I don't need that counter. I'm going to have bin file. The only thing is I'm not setting self failed bin file. Oh yeah, here. So then if self bin file, and I don't need the loop here either. I don't need that either. I need to go quickly reference one of my things that doesn't have a loop. Yeah, I just call it. So then if failed bin file, call failed bin check. If WebEx is defined, call the failed bin WebEx. Self failed, missing golden image, and if it passes, we're going to say golden image present. Call the bin file check, call the WebEx check, get rid of that name, set our threshold again. And then we're going to say if self dot failed bin file equals our threshold. Say the golden image is present, else fail it and say the image file failed bin file, and our threshold is the threshold. And we're going to do that again here for the WebEx message. And we're going to take this same logic here, else show, hang on, what's the name of my failed dir adaptive card? And we want host name self.hostname. That was pretty obvious. Hostname equals self.hostname. I already had that in there. Bin file equals self failed bin file. And the test is going to be called bin file. I think that's actually going to work out. I can't believe I got all that sorted out. Okay, so now we go into our Jinja template, and I called it bin file. So we're going to take our existing test, our existing adaptive card template, I should say, add another end if, and then rewrite it with the appropriate, right? So this is bin file. Is that what I called it? Yeah, bin file. Has detected a failure on blank because the image is bin file. Is that what I called it? I have to keep checking. Yeah, bin file. And then because the image is bin file, image, we can make that a little smaller, bin file, dir command. Okay, so in theory this one should pass the test. Now, I don't know. I'm not guaranteed that this is, I'm just rolling the dice here. Let's see if we get any errors and work backwards from the errors. I think on paper it looks pretty good, but let's see if there's any red. We should not get, so we should get the disk space failure. Okay, hang on. Okay, hang on. So it's failing all these tests. I have a loop in there somewhere that I shouldn't have. But there's our bin file. And it technically is building a table of every file. So I've got a problem in my for loop. I'm looping somewhere I shouldn't be looping. Okay. We're the only for file in file list. If file equals bin file. And they're all failing. I guess I'm already looping in here. Append it to the list. For file in file list. If the file, does it pass it? Okay, no, it's taking the whole thing. So let's just append the name. That will start to fix the problem so that I'm only keying in on the name. But I was thinking that if it equals it, then do this logic. For file in file list, if the file equals it, then write past. I guess I don't want to do that. For file in file list, if now they could have more than one bin file, so I can't just say if bin in file. If hang on. If file equals the bin file threshold, I'm already doing that. Then pass it, else fail it. But I only want it to do it for the file and file list, and then when I match, write this. Let's just take the loop out. Let's take the loop out and see what difference that makes. So technically my table, at least my table will be cleaner because I'm not calling the full dictionary, I'm just calling the individual. No, I'm doing the same thing. It should just be appending the F name though. It shouldn't be appending the whole thing. I don't mean to go silent. What I've done is taken out that some of that logic. And let's see. Okay, so I do have the file name itself now. And I need to add this F name to every instance of file in here. Like that. Okay, that's slightly better. I only want to do this if it matches. I don't want to do it for every... I do have to loop through all the files though. Just trying to work out some logic in my head here. I'm just trying to figure out the best way to stop, to only write and so now it's not doing the full table. I don't think I can do a when. Yeah, I can't do when. This isn't C++. Yeah, maybe enumerate or some other way. Here's the image file. If file fname equals bin file threshold. Hang on, I didn't need that there. Hang on. Let me get to a point where at least the table is. I might have to dump. Yeah, I could maybe do items. It's now I'm not even getting the bin file though. It's like dying after the .conf. I don't even have the actual image file, because I'm actually okay. It's technically okay if I loop and build this table and they all fail. But then I'm setting failed. What I could do is say if pass is in table at the end of it, like interrogate table data, and say if passed is in that table data. All right, go ahead and list all the files. Which I'm pretty sure way back I probably lost it in my buffer here. Maybe I should interrogate the table at the end and look for passed. For file and file list, if file equals bin threshold, add passed. Otherwise add failed. How do I get the whole table back in there? What have I done? I thought I had that working. Because I haven't nested this over enough? That's what's going on? Yeah, I think I've broken my nesting. And then for here, I can say if passed in table data, I need to reverse this logic. If passed not in table data, then go ahead and do the failures, else pass it. Golden image present. Aha! Aha! So now we'll actually get a table of all the files too, hopefully. I don't know what I've done. I'm pretty sure I had the all files printing before, way up earlier. So why is it dying? Like that Bootflash is there, right? I haven't deleted it. So I'm not getting every single file in this list. Okay, just let me print something here. Actually, you know what? Let's build the table and do this as a separate bit of logic instead of having everything nested. So we'll build up our file list, right? Loop through all the files and then do that logic. Hey, I have a question for everybody watching who's a programmer who does code. Did you read Games magazine as a kid, or did your mom or dad used to read or have Games magazine kicking around? My theory is that Gen Xers like me had parents who read Games magazine and loved the puzzles and the logic problems and stuff. No, all right, so that's even worse logic. So let's just dump this table. Not you? Okay. There was a magazine called Games, and the cover of it had a puzzle, and all throughout the book it had different logic puzzles and stuff. I killed it too soon. And I think that's what got me into programming or coding or logic problems was Games magazine. Okay, so it's definitely in there. There's the bin file, and there are all these other files. So why? Okay, so I know my file list has the files. And let me just change this to item instead of file. Actually, let's make that item. And then for each file in that file list, if the file equals the bin threshold, append past. Else, is it because of this table row is in the wrong spot because I've reversed the logic? Yeah, John, hang on. What I need to do is take table row stupid. So I need to take that out and put it here, and then have my if logic. Right? If file is in the file list, for file in file list, which is the equivalent, I need my if check. If table row, and then I have my if check here for the passed or failed. So this should just say if file is present, and now I need another if check here. If file equals bin threshold, append passed, else append failed, and set the bin file, and then append the row outside of the logic, or append the row for each file like that, and then check if pass is not in table data, kick off my failure stuff. I think that's cleaner. Let's see. I think I've just got that moving my logic around. I ignored the table setup itself. No, I haven't heard. I've heard of Simon Tatham, but I haven't heard of that portable collection. Okay, so it is passing, and this is sort of closer. And then I'm saying if passed is in the table, I see the file. I need to change that. My failure reason is, my reasoning here is wrong. So if file equals bin threshold else, I need to do the same if pass not in table data. No. Yeah, you see, so what's happening now is that my logic is pretty sound, I think. It's just that I'm setting failed bin file to file, which is the last file in the loop. So I need to write my table, and I need to handle this a little better. So I need to get rid of that. And I'm going to say if bin in file, set the self bin file, else self failed bin file equals no image present. Let's try that. It's a little bit extra, but I think I know that's what's happening. And it's still not quite. Still not quite there. And am I getting spammed with WebExes? Yeah, because no image is present. So my logic is still not quite sound here. If bin in file, and bin is definitely in the file, so it's always going to write the last file in the loop to this bin file using this logic. So that's got to go. But I need something to trigger the failure, which is here. If passed not in data table, maybe I don't need to write that file. I can just say if passed not in data table, run the checks. I think I'm overthinking this. I don't think I even need a self-failed bin file. Right? I'm just really looking for the presence of this file in the list of files. I don't necessarily need to say, yeah, I think I'm overcomplicating this as usual. Let's just try it that way. I'm pretty sure, I've said this before. I think that's going to work. I think I just had an unnecessary. This isn't like an interface that I'm trying to keep track of. I'm just saying, is the file there or not? And if passed is in the table, yeah, I see. Yeah. I'm referencing the file I just got rid of elsewhere. And I'm only calling the bin check if passed is not in there. So again, that logic needs to be the same thing here. If passed not in data table, and if passed is not in the data table, but I don't think I'm setting it as self data table. It's going to say, yeah, data table is not. So let's make that self data table, self data table, self data table, self data table, self data table. Okay. It's a little bit different than what my other tests were, which were evaluating if something is greater than or equal than something or not equal something. I'm just really testing for the presence of, and it didn't like data table. Where else did I call that logic? Up here, John, self.data table. Excuse me, everybody. Okay, all right, that's okay. We're working through it. I think this might be the one. We're gonna know in a second. Here it comes. Hey Chase, all right, thanks for joining. And I didn't see any red. So now let's find our test here. Directory bin has file was skipped. Well, that's not good. Why did it skip this test? I gotta look at the code one more time and just, I have to figure out these breakpoints as well. If anyone knows, I know I can put the red dot here to set the breakpoint, but I don't know how to invoke that breakpoint and get it to stop. I might want to look into that tonight. Okay, so it didn't skip it. Directory has bin filed. It does have the bin file. Result of section directory has bin file is skipped. I don't know why it's skipping that test. It's because I don't have directory has bin file, and it made the table. I'm not sure why it's skipping, why it's saying skipped here. And then golden image is present, skipped reason. Skipped. I understand why this failed bin test was skipped. Right, and it should have skipped it, and the WebEx should have skipped it, but I don't know why it's skipping the parent bin test. Skipped reason, golden image present. Should be pass or fail. I should be passed, golden image present. Why is that not passing? Ideas? Anybody? I don't quite understand why this, I'm definitely passed is in the data table, so I should be hitting this else and saying self.passed. I log the table and then I hit this logic here. Let me change these messages so they're unique. I still don't quite know why it's jumping to skipped here. And see, it's like it's hitting these and skipping the test. No, but then it should have hit failed and say missing golden image. I should never... Does this log as skipped? Let's try it again. Not quite sure why it is skipping that when I have it as dot passed instead of dot skipped. There's our disk space. It'll be the very next test here. Oh no, no. Well, that's okay. We'll look in the logs. We'll call up the log viewer. Skipped. See, it's saying golden image present. So it's never reaching my this I'm not sure why. Am I not hitting this logic at all? It's like it's not hitting this logic. Well, this is backwards too. It should say if passed in, not in. So just let me undo those and see. It's still not quite doing what I think it should be doing here. Right. So that in table is not working. That's why it's image file. So this self.table data, this not in is not working. Well, I don't know why. I know why. It's because I'll have to. It's because the case doesn't match. It should be just passed, not all uppercase passed. That's going to help for sure. But then I need the failed, right? So what we're going to say is the image file is not present in Bootflash. And I need to change my Jinja template to say, because the image file blank is not present on Bootflash, because the image file is not present on Bootflash. Again, so this is just different. It's different. So I have to handle the logic differently, because I'm not just saying if it's greater than or equals to or equals. I'm just saying, is this file one of the files? And I had it as all caps passed, and that's an exact string, so that was never hitting on that. So let's try it again. Thank you for your patience. We will get this worked out tonight, and then I'm going to call it a night, because we've already documented it. We've already tested a couple of things, and now this will be kind of the pièce de résistance if we can get... okay. It's still failing, but it should be, it's there. Why is it failing these tests? It is on Bootflash. It is on the Bootflash. Where's my directory check? Well, at least it's running it and failing now. So that's better. Now the WebEx passed. So at least it's not skipping it any longer. Okay, so that's a step. We're making progress, one little change at a time. So why, if file in bin file and our table clearly shows that it passed, if I run our PyETS log viewer, let me just check that it is in the table. It's right there. Passed. The image file blank is not present in Bootflash. It is present in Bootflash. So why is it saying that? If passed in self.table. So it's like this evaluation. It's like I can't evaluate if something is in self.table. But didn't it say the WebEx passed? Oh, that's just the post. Oh, thanks, Jake. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, don't stay up past your bedtime. My brain's getting fried too. I'll be done in just a minute here. So maybe I just check file list. So maybe I should make file lists. So let's get rid of self.datatable. And we'll make it self.filelist, self.filelist, self.filelist. I don't see, it's no different though, right? Not in self.filelist, file list. No, I need to say if bin file threshold is not in the file list. If bin.threshold, have I really overcomplicated this? That's all I need to do, right? Is say if that file is not in the list, fail the test. Let's try it that way. Thanks for coming, Jake. I hope to see you around, and make sure you reach out on Twitter to get a copy of that book. I will send that over to you. Hey! Big round of applause. Big round of applause if you've been paying attention here. Now, right, directory has bin file has passed, and we're skipping the file check, and we're skipping the file check. And I should not have gotten, and I didn't. I don't know what happened to my PyETS logs. That's not important. That's not the important thing. So now let's fail the test on purpose. Let's run it again, just to be sure. And I don't know what happened to my, did my WebEx token expire? No, because I'm still sending in the WebEx. Weird. Anyway, I'm not getting the log summary in my WebEx right now, but that has nothing to do with what we've been working on. And the next tests are the Bootflash. There's our list of files, and it has passed. Okay, so now obviously I'm not going to remove the Bootflash from the device, but what we're going to do is we're going to just get rid of it from the JSON. Actually, you know what? Let's change it. Let's make it that somebody has downgraded to 9.5. Save that. Commit that. 9.3.5 test. Right, so somebody's downgraded, or the wrong image is on a box, or somebody forgot to upgrade a box or something like that. So now let's run the same set of tests, and this one should fail. This one should say your golden image is not on Bootflash and send the WebEx alert. And there's the failure. That's what we want. You can see it in the table there. Let's call up the logger. And we have done it, ladies and gentlemen, tonight. Thank you for joining, everybody. And if we go in here, right, you can see 938 is not present in Bootflash. And if we check the table, it's 935 and it failed. So if it's not present at all, if there's no bin file, or if our golden image is not there, then go ahead and fail the test because our golden image is not present. And if we go to WebEx, we get the alert that 938 bin is not present in Bootflash. Okay, all right, so I'm going to wrap things up tonight. Let me do my git commit messages, and first, before I forget, because I've been forgetting to do this, let me flush out all of my keys and stuff so this is safe to push into, and let's get rid of those PyCache. Commit, and we're going to call this dir test for what did we test? Free Bootflash disk space and presence of golden image. And that's been committed. And let's go, our output we don't need to commit. And we'll go to, I have to push in nxpydocs, our parent code here with our latest distribution. So let's patch this up a version to 11. I guess. Poetry build. Poetry publish. And thank you all for joining tonight. It was nice to see some new people. Thank you for coming. And Neil, great to have you. Danny, great to have you. Jake, Chase, thank you so much. That will be tonight's coding. And I'm going to say dir documented. So we've documented the directory, we've tested the directory, and now we have put it up onto WebEx on failures. So we'll see you soon. I'll probably do some more streaming tomorrow night to keep up my streak. And it was great to see everybody. Take care.